Welcome everyone once again to another episode of Coffee and Bolter. In this episode, we're going to talk about a chapter master. A chapter master who is also one of the most honorable, one of the most beloved by regular humans, and a true protector. There are chapter masters like Marneus Calgar, or Azrael, or Dante, who are perhaps they're more detached from their human traits and are more like Supermen, right? But this chapter master, he takes very good care of his humanity. So, we're going to talk about Logan Grimnar, the Great Wolf, and how his, his personality has forged this chapter over the last 500 years. So, let's get to it. Let's start with an introduction to the chapter master of the Space Wolves, the Great Wolf, Logan Grimnar. Logan Grimnar is the Great Wolf, or chapter master of the Space Wolves. He is one of the most belligerent and stubborn chapter masters in the Imperium of Man, as well as perhaps the greatest wolf lord of all time. But he remains absolutely loyal to the Emperor of Mankind and to the great Primarch of the Space Wolves, Leman Russ. Grimnar has been the Great Wolf of the Space Wolves for more than 500 of his 700 standard years of life, and he is one of the oldest chapter masters of any loyalist Space Marine chapter. Like his fellow Space Marines, Grimnar is a fearsome warrior with great martial pride. He has led his great company, the Champions of Fenris, against many enemies of the Imperium, and has shown a renowned thirst for battle that some say even rivals that of Leman Russ himself. Logan, or the Old Wolf, as his brothers know him, is an extremely powerful warrior who will always fight to the end for what he believes in, both in the name of the Emperor and for the lives of his beloved Space Wolves. It is believed, according to some observers, that Grimnar is one of the most powerful warriors in the Imperium. Even greater than other Space Marine chapter masters like Commander Dante of the Blood Angels, Supreme Grand Master Azrael of the Dark Angels, and even Marneus Calgar of the feared Ultramarines. Grimnar does not accept interference in the running of his chapter from other Imperial authorities, including the Inquisition. In fact, the Space Wolves have had numerous clashes with the Ecclesiarchy, and this has led to accusations of heresy and treason against the chapter. Nonsense! In his 500-year reign, Grimnar has led the Space Wolves to many victories, crushing the enemies of the Imperium without hesitation. As a result, many Imperial commanders across the galaxy are grateful to be under the watchful eye of the Old Wolf. Logan Grimnar is a rarity among Space Marine chapter masters, for he is more respected and loved by the commoners of the Imperium than he is feared. He possesses an unyielding compassion for the weak that rivals that of the Emperor himself. Grimnar was the only Space Marine leader, with the exception of the Salamanders, to speak out against the Imperium's purge of the civilians who survived the First War for Armageddon. The Inquisition considered them too corrupt to live for having witnessed the forces of chaos and learned of the existence of both the ruinous powers and the demonic sorcery of chaos. Grimnar's hatred for the Inquisition was forever cemented after those innocent citizens of the Imperium were unceremoniously sterilized and scattered to forced labor camps to rebuild Armageddon. They were replaced by a new group of colonists brought in by the Inquisition to repopulate the Hive World. Since that conflict, the Space Wolves have fought many bloody wars to protect the innocent victims of chaos. But what is his story? How did his saga begin? Let's begin with the Sea of Blades. Logan Grimnar's homeworld, Fenris, is a planet that spends most of its solar year trapped in ice and snow. Once each cycle, Fenris draws near its star, the bluish-white sun called the Wolf's Eye. Its frozen seas thaw, its mantle cracks, and boiling magma erupts from the world's core. During this time, the planet is completely remade, and its human tribes set out in their drakkars to find new homes where they can survive another Fenrisian year. From this harsh and brutal environment, the Space Wolves recruit their battle brothers. Grimnar, like all Space Wolf Astartes, once lived among the Fenrisians, a young warrior of the Iron Blood tribe. Even in his early years, the future Wolf Lord made a name for himself among the Fenrisians as a daring, fearless fighter and a bold sailor. However, it was not until a fateful battle in the Sea of Blades that the eyes of the Sky Warriors fell upon him, and his destiny changed forever. Land is life on Fenris, and only those tribes that can find a place to beach their drakars for the long winter to come have a chance to survive. Land is also scarce, and a tribe must be willing to fight for what it finds, lest another tribe take it from them. Sometimes enormous land masses rise from the sea, bringing with them ruins full of treasure and precious materials to forge weapons and build ships. In these times, many tribes fight for domination over these rare prizes, and the sea fills with drakars. When the Kraken's spur rose from the boiling ocean, Logan sailed with the Ironblood tribe and their allies, the Tidehounds, to its shores, with strength of arm and cunning. With sheer brutality and unyielding resolve, he battled against the Sea Devil and Ice Tusk tribes, staining the steaming rocks of the Kraken's spur with bright, vivid blood. In the ruins of the Temple of Morkai, Grimnar's crew was ambushed by the leader of the Sea Devils, Thorgil Frosttooth, and his Kraken's lair. In a matter of solar minutes, the once silent halls of the temple echoed with the sounds of battle. Thorgil and his enormous raiders overwhelmed the Ironbloods until Grimnar, alone, with a blood-stained axe in each hand, was left standing on the altar of Morkai. From high up in the ruins, a wolf priest watched as the combat unfolded. For days, the priest had followed the young warrior's exploits as his crew fought in a series of bold and masterful raids against their enemies. Now he was witness to Grimnar fending off a dozen Fenrisian tribesmen. His axes a crimson blur of motion, opening throats and severing limbs. Finally, Thorgil himself challenged Logan, and the two warriors clashed over the piled corpses of their crews. When Grimnar sank his axe into Thorgil's skull, the wolf priest would swear he saw the shadow of a gigantic warrior in power armor with a flowing mane rise up behind the victorious tribesman. Murmuring a prayer to the emperor, the priest knew then that the Allfather had blessed that young man. When the Ironblood scouts later found the temple ruins, they only discovered the tangled bodies of Thorgil and his men, but no trace of Logan. That gives me goosebumps. The wolf priest was not the only one who saw the greatness of Leman Russ in the young Logan Grimnar. A warrior named Ulrich would remain close to the recruit, constantly testing him and seeing if he was truly worthy of the destiny his mentor perceived in him. The first signs of this greatness came during the trial of Morkai, when Logan slew the ice troll Frozen Blood, a fearsome beast that had killed dozens of the chapter's recruits. In a cave filled with the remains of Fenrisian warriors, Grimnar drove a broken bone into Frozen Blood's eye, howling his rage into the beast's face even as its fangs tore at his arm. The Canis Helix took to Grimnar as if he had been born to become a space marine. And in time, the young warrior was inducted into the great company of Asvald Stormrack as a Bloodclaw. Grimnar proved his skill and valor repeatedly in wars across the Sea of Stars, adapting to the life of a Sky Warrior as easily as if he had been sailing the seas of Fenris. However, what made the future Wolf Lord stand out from his brothers was not just his bravery or his cunning, but the inexhaustible charisma he wielded like a weapon. His easygoing smile and clever, witty jests won him the trust of all he met, even the old and cynical Longfangs of the company, who grudgingly admitted they had grown to appreciate the pup. After more than a standard century of war and unparalleled heroism, Logan Grimnar had risen to earn a place among Asvald's Wolf Guard, often keeping the Wolf Lord's counsel and always close by his side. As always, the wolf priests kept a close watch on Grimnar, and Ulrich taught the young warrior everything there was to know about the traditions and history of the chapter. When Asvald finally fell in battle before the Cyclopean Maw, Logan Grimnar was elected Wolf Lord of the Great Company in his place by the unanimous assent of his Wolf Guard comrades. When Logan Grimnar was young, the Sky Warrior saw in him the seeds of greatness. Since then, he has proven himself fearless in battle, wise in counsel, and tempered in spirit. Not since the time of Leman Russ had the chapter known such a leader. The Wolf Lord's ascension to Great Wolf seemed to be blessed by the Great Primarch himself. Grimnar is a figure of awe not only on Fenris but throughout the length and breadth of mankind's domain. To say that Logan is popular is like saying the stars in the sky are numerous. He is the warrior king of the Space Wolves, a wise and cunning leader whose adoration borders on the veneration of many, across many imperial worlds. The old wolf inspires a loyalty so unbreakable that it has led his sons of Rust to unimaginable terrors and has emerged with victory firmly clutched in his claws. Under Grimnar's command, men and women become heroes and heroes become legends. The Great Wolf, Logan Grimnar, has ruled the Space Wolves chapter for more than 500 standard years and has claimed countless great victories during his reign. He is a hero like no other, renowned throughout the Imperium as both a savior and a warrior king. He has guided the Sons of Russ in innumerable battles, changing the course of history time and again with his deeds. As the last bloody days of the 41st millennium draw to a close, Logan Grimnar, the Great Wolf, sits on his throne on Fenris and prepares for the Wolf Time. A scarred veteran of 1,000 campaigns, Logan is one of the oldest warlords of the Imperium, having lived for more than 7 Terran centuries. However, despite the weight of the years that rests on his broad shoulders, he remains vital and determined. Like an old, long-fanged thunder wolf, Grimnar is a dangerous and cunning enemy. The Space Wolves follow Grimnar not out of duty, but because they idolize him. Few chapter masters can be said to be held in such high esteem as Logan Grimnar. He has an authority and charisma that transcends that of common generals and warlords, and no one who has met his gaze can deny that they are in the presence of a true leader. Logan Grimnar, known as the Old Wolf, the Fangfather, and the High King of Fenris, personifies the noble fury of his people. The length of Logan Grimnar's reign and the success of the Space Wolves during this time speak to the strength of leadership and the talent for war that Grimnar possesses. Few generals can match the raw charisma that Logan Grimnar possesses. While some may have to work hard to earn the respect of their warriors, for the Great Wolf, this is something that comes naturally. Grimnar has earned the approval of his Space Wolves through his actions and his words. On the battlefield, the Old Wolf leads by example, always being the first to charge into combat. The Space Wolves are recruited from the warrior tribes of Fenris, a frozen and inhospitable world of vast oceans and slavering predators. In many ways, the structure of the Space Wolves chapter reflects the tribal origins of its battle brothers. Logan Grimnar is seen not only as a military commander, but also as a great clan leader, or Drakkar captain, revered positions of power on the world of Fenris. This recognition brings with it many ancestral responsibilities, like having to constantly prove his right to lead, both through his skill with arms and his leadership in battle. Logan Grimnar is not the chapter master of the Space Wolves by virtue of inheritance. He has earned the right through strength, valor, wisdom, and honor. A born warrior, Grimnar fought his way up through the ranks of the Space Wolves under the watchful eye of the venerable wolf priest, Ulrich the Slayer. Despite the fact that Logan has seen 700 Terran years of war, to this day, Ulrich still calls Logan the young Grimnar. And it is a sign of his good-natured character that Logan allows this to pass without comment. Unlike the distant and aloof lords of other Astartes chapters, Logan is charismatic and extremely personable. He is as likely to reward his warriors with a hearty slap on the back and a tankard of strong Fenrisian mead as with an official commendation. The King of Fenris respects those who fight, drink, and feast with him, and few others. Clad in his ornate Terminator armor, Grimnar towers over all, save for his mighty champion, Arjak Rockfist. His beard is long and his fangs are strong, but age has not made him weary. Logan's armor is wrapped in the infamous pelt of the Thunderwolf Fellclaw, whose gilded skull acts as a crown upon his head. Fellclaw once terrorized the northern plains of the Fenrisian continent of Asaheim, which lie beneath the shadow of Mount Thrangar. Grimnar decided to hunt the deadly creature and tracked it to its lair. Alone, naked, and unarmed, Logan fought his prey on equal terms, finally tearing out the Thunderwolf's throat with his own fangs after a vicious battle. Seeking refuge from a fierce ice storm, Logan reached the beast's lair, and there he found two lone wolf cubs. It was clear that Fellclaw's ferocity was partly due to the paternal instinct to protect its young. Unable to leave them to their fate, Logan wrapped the young cubs in Fellclaw's pelt and returned to the Fang. The Fang is the fortress monastery of the Space Wolves. The pair eventually grew into mighty Thunderwolves, fiercely loyal to their master, and have remained by his side for more than 500 standard years. Although Grimnar has won countless victories, he has not only waged his wars against the enemies of the Imperium. He has willingly led, some would say with joy, his forces into battle against other imperial institutions whose agendas and actions he considered a threat to those within his vast domain. This has led to many accusations of rebellion, heresy, and treason being leveled against Grimnar and his chapter, along with the usual rumors of genetic deviation. The fact that the old wolf is so willing to face his detractors on the battlefield is undoubtedly one of the reasons these accusations are not taken further. The high adepts of the Administratum know from experience that it is better to have the Space Wolves as allies than as enemies. However, no matter how unorthodox his methods may be, no one can deny that Logan Grimnar is one of the most successful commanders in all of humanity. A true champion of the Imperium and an inspiration to both mortals and Adeptus Astartes alike. Now we come to the present day, after the opening of the Great Rift or the Cicatrix Maledictum. In all his years, Logan Grimnar had never been tested with such ferocity as when the Cicatrix Maledictum appeared. Warp storms ravaged the skies, turning every journey and communication into a living nightmare. Distress calls came in like an unstoppable river, impossible to attend to, and each day demanded the full extent of the Great Wolf's leadership. Only when he could descend into the heat of battle himself, unleashing his fury upon the enemies of the Imperium, did he find relief and purpose. Fenris needed its king, and he responded with the force of 1,000 storms. At first, Grimnar viewed the gift of the Primaris and the promises of Robut Gilliman with suspicion. When the Fleet Primus approached the planet's orbit after years of isolation, the Great Wolf ordered all ships to halt instantly. He declared that if a single ship dared to descend without invitation, it would be considered a threat and hunted down without mercy, for Fenris knew no chains nor obedience to capricious outsiders. Shortly after, Ulrich and Lieutenant Castalor managed to get Grimnar to agree to an audience. Before the Great Wolf's eyes were the Primaris reinforcements, more than 3,000 elite warriors ready for war. It was a gift that he, with the stubbornness of Fenris running through his veins, rejected outright. His court, Ulrich the Slayer, Njal Stormcaller, the Rune Priest, Aryak Rockfist, and Leifar Twice Dead tried to reason with the Great Wolf, reminding him of the chapter's precarious situation. But Grimnar accused the Breaker of Legions, as he called Gilliman, of wanting to subjugate Fenris and shatter millennia of independence. Even when Castalor clarified that his only intention was to coordinate the response to the Abyss threatening the Imperium after the Great Rift, Grimnar maintained the gaze of a wild wolf, firm, indomitable, and resolute. The Missile Crisis. The tension reached its climax when a Fenrisian missile silo was taken by force, aimed at the Eternal Hate. The Prospectines, a rebel sect of the Thousand Suns, sought to destroy the flagship with weapons of mass devastation. The shields were down by order of the Great Wolf, a sign of good faith toward the Fleet Primus, but the threat was imminent. Castalor requested immediate intervention, and Grimnar asked for patience. The first wolves and the greyskins fought on the ground while he calculated every move like a stalking predator. One mistake could cost lives and future empires. An urgent message from Castalor announced the arrival of Robute Gilliman, the Primarch, on Fenris. He sought to map out the definitive strategy against the invading orcs who were ravaging nearby sectors. The news made everyone tense. Some councillors demanded they repel the Primarch, others called for cooperation, and a few remained silent, fearful of wasting energy trying to convince the Great Wolf. Reluctantly, Grimnar accepted. He gathered all the squads and leaders and for weeks orchestrated the Lord Commander's reception, a clash of egos to show that he would never cower before the Primarch's charisma. Finally, the banquet took place. Guilliman occupied the opposite end of an empty throne, clad in his imposing armor. The Great Wolf had yet to appear. The empty spaces among those present recalled the chapter's painful losses. After a toast of honor from the Lord Commander, the Space Wolves celebrated with howls and cheers for their Great Wolf. And then, like a bolt of lightning descending from the cloudy skies of Fenris, Logan Grimnar burst into the hall, wielding his axe and clad in his armor. The tension filled the air as the two leaders stared each other down. Until the unimaginable happened. Guilliman, the Primarch, knelt before the Great Wolf. What followed the negotiations is lost to rumors and fragmented chronicles. But Grimnar finally accepted the Primaris, the Rubicon, and more than 3,000 warriors ready for war, without swearing loyalty to the Primarch, preserving the sovereignty of Fenris, and ensuring that its borders would remain inviolable. A tactical and symbolic victory, signed with the authority of an immortal wolf. Well, let's see what it is, what panoply, what armor, what axe the Wolf Lord carries. Alright, let's take a look. Logan wears ornate Terminator armor with an integrated Storm Bolter, wielding the fearsome axe Morkai, taken from a Chaos Champion and purified by the Iron Priests, to reflect the image of the two-headed wolf that guards the gates of the Fenrisian underworld. Over his armor, he proudly wears the pelt of a Fenrisian wolf he felled with his own hands. His war chariot, Stormrider, pulled by gigantic thunderwolves from the era of Lehman Russ, carries the old wolf into the heart of the enemy lines. Runes of power and energy fields protect both the driver and the beasts, making every charge a cataclysm upon the enemies of the Imperium. Alone, Grimnar is lethal. Accompanied by Turnak and Fenrir, his thunderwolves, he becomes an unstoppable storm of death. The skull of the relentless claw, the golden skull of the monstrous wolf he once hunted, is his eternal totem. A mere glance at it is enough for his followers to feel renewed resolve. The Belt of Rust protects the wearer with an invisible force field, while his avalanche pattern Stormbolter, masterfully calibrated by the Iron Priests, unleashes relentless fire upon heretics, mutants, and Xenos, proving that Grimnar embodies the indomitable strength of the Imperium and the living legend of Fenris. Well, we had to bring Logan Grimnar here, since for us, he is truly the coolest and most impressive, as well as the most awesome figure of all the Space Marine chapter masters. He represents everything the wolves are. Wisdom, age, honor, they're truly indomitable. Oh, an unstoppable force. That miniature has a brutal strength. That Terminator armor, the two wolves, the axe Morkai, it's an incredible miniature. So we wanted to bring it to the Joust Studio, to Coffee and Bolter and the Joust Studio. As you know, we at the Joust Studio are developing a new formula called Tabletop Plus. And this weekend, the saga of the 3 guides we're making for Logan Grimnar concludes. So, well, to celebrate the release of these guides, we also wanted to make this episode of Coffee and Bolter very focused on the figure of Logan. So, as you know, we have a ton of Marines, a ton of Xenos, everything in our studio. But this weekend, you will finally have the 3 complete guides for Logan Grimnar.